Alright, well, I have no idea why I'm having troubles with my router. I turned everyone off in the house completely. There is no other reason for me to be having any troubles whatsoever. I can barely wait to get a camera that's dedicated, straight with a dedicated line, because this is ridiculous. But I want to welcome everyone to another bedtime story for Monday, September 9th. Let me make sure I'm getting the chat here so I can copy it. I learned I can copy the chat and put it into the comments as requested. I think that's kind of cool. Only I'm not going to look at the chat on there. I'm going to try not to as much as possible. Not in my head or anything. Very bad connection, it says. Jeez. I don't know what to say to that. I've done everything I know to make it a good connection. Except for maybe it's my $60 phone. As soon as I get, I'm real close. You guys have been so generous, and I want you to know that everyone that has donated, I have prayed for you, and I'm going to continue to pray for you, and I can't thank you enough. You guys leak, because your generation knows no bounds, and I really can't do it without it. I don't want to beg. I'm not going to beg or anything, but I personally, from the bottom of my heart, want to thank you guys, because this little problem I'm having tonight and I had last night is going to go away with this, what you guys are helping me with. Tonight, since it's Columbus Day and I have a little native blood in me, and I'm going to talk Bigfoot. I want to start off with a story that I was told a long time ago, and then I was given a book that has a story in it as well. In fact, if I'm going to start with the Cherokee legend of the Tsul'Kalu. Tsul'Kalu, I think that's how you say it. I hope I'm not butchering it that bad. I can't speak Cherokee. I only have a little bits of Cherokee in me, about a quarter. I wished I would have learned the language. I really do. Maybe I should start learning it, huh? And I'm trying to learn how to play the traditional flute that somebody gave me, and spirit feather. If you're listening, thank you for the flute. It is so cool. I'm gonna learn how to play it, and I think that's gonna be my music. I'm gonna have a little music coming in, and I'm actually gonna play my own flute music. Anyway, I'll start with the Tsul'Kalu, the slant-eyed giant, and it's a Cherokee story of a mother and a daughter who had just become marrying age, and the mother told the daughter that she wanted her to marry somebody that would meet all her needs. So she wanted her to meet a good hunter and marry a hunter. That way he would supply all her needs and the mom's needs, right? Not just the daughter's needs, but take care of the mom too. And that night, it was a really dark night, according to legend, and there was a knock at her door, and the mother lived in the main house, I guess you would call it, and then the daughter lived in, I think they call it an Aussie, outside of the house. And there was a knock at the door, and the daughter opened the door, and there was this guy out there. It was actually Tsul'Kalu, and he asked if he could come in, and she said no, she couldn't bring any meet men or talk to men or invite men in unless they were hunters, great hunters, And he said, well, I'm a great hunter. And he said, I'll prove it. I'll leave some meat, for your mom in the morning. So she invited him in, and he stayed all night. And then before the daylight or daybreak, he left. And when she went outside, she found a deer laying at her mom's porch. And she woke her mom up, and she's like, look, I met a hunter, and he left a deer. And the mom was like, wow, that's so cool. Maybe he could leave some firewood tomorrow night. Sound like a mom, huh? Like a mother-in-law. Like, maybe he could leave some firewood tomorrow night. It's starting to get chilly. So the next night he showed up, but nobody ever mentioned to him about the firewood. And he stayed all night, and then the next morning when he left before the sun came up, next morning when she went outside, there was 3 big trees laying at the door of her mother's house, not cut up, with all the branches on it, And the mother came out, and she's like, what is this? And she said, well, he left you some firewood. She says, well, at least he could have cut it up and stacked it, instead of leaving this big mess for me to clear up and blocking up the path, And sound like the mother-in-law again, or the mother, And so the next, that night, he shows up again, and he stays all night, and in the morning when they got up, this time they found 2 deers at the mom's house, right at her door, and the wood was cleared away and gone. And this went on, for the next night, and then the mother's, he left, and he left some game, and it went on, and he kept, every night when he left, or before the daybreak, he would leave some game or some kind of meat at the mother's door. And then one day the mother's like, it really would be nice to meet this great hunter, your hunter man, but only he always leaves in the morning. So that night, the daughter, when he shows up, she tells him, my mom wants to meet you. And he's like, no, that can't happen. She can't see me because she can't handle it, She'll scream and run away and terror and all this stuff. There's no way that she can eat me. And this kept up, the mom pressing for the mom kept pressing for a visit, and finally, he gives in. Or no, I don't think he gives in. She sneaks in, right? She knows he's there, so she sneaks in, and without them knowing, and here he is, and he's when she walks in, what she sees is this guy, or this hairy man, laying on the ground, and his head is, up against the wall, going up the wall, and his feet are he's like bent at the knees, and his feet are going up the wall on the other side, right? And he's all like squished in there, and he's sleeping in there, and she freaked out and ran screaming out, and it made him mad, It woke him up, it made him mad, and he told her, come on, let's go, I'm taking you and I'm marrying you. And she's like, no, I need to talk to my mother and all this stuff. And he says, well, that wasn't agreed to, and I don't like that, and I want to marry you and take you to where I live, So she talks to the mom, and she tells the mom, and the mom's like freaked out, but he is a great hunter, and he left some more meat, and so the mom's kind of like okay with it, and all of a sudden she realizes she's pregnant, and while he's gone in the daytime, I don't know how long, that it was like into the pregnancy, but not very long. I mean, like hardly anything at all. she aborts the baby in the daytime, and she gets her mother, and has her help her, and the mother takes the the abortion and takes it out to the river and throws it in the river. And then that night, Tsul'Kalu, he shows up and he says, "Where's our child?" And she goes, "There's no child. I aborted the child." He goes, "I don't like the way your mother treats our children," and he says, "Where is it? Where's the blood?" She says, "Well, my mom threw it in the river." So he goes out to the river and he comes back with this little worm looking thing. And, he's ranting and raving about how, the mom doesn't know how to take care of his child. And but only right in front of their eyes, it's no time, hours, by the next morning, it's not a little worm looking things anymore. Now it's a baby. It's a full-on baby. And he tells the girl, "Let's go, we're not staying here with anyone that's going to treat our children like this. You're going to come to live with me and be my wife." So they take off. And a little while later, it got around. It got around that she was with this great hunter. Wow, it looks like when I raise it up, I get a better signal. Kind of weird. Let me see. So it gets around that she's with this great hunter, and her brother, who lives in another village, he comes over and he wants to meet her husband. And the mom said, "Oh, they left. They left this morning, and they're going to where Tsul'Kalu lives." And so they go off, and he's like, "Well, I'm going to catch up to him. He's a good tracker." So he decides he's going to, catch up to him and talk to him. Yeah, give him some lessons, huh? I don't know how, I don't know how. I guess you're born with it. I don't know. I know all you guys are really good people, though. You guys really are. So the brother's tracking him down. The first day, he finds where they camped at, and he sees that there's a little boy, or there's little baby tracks with the tracks. That's the first night, and he sees where they camp and everything, and he camps the same place they camp. And he gets up in the morning and he's tracking them, and as he's tracking them, the little baby tracks now are growing, okay? In one day, now the tracks it looks like teenager-sized tracks. And he comes where they camped the second night, and he camps the second night at the same place they camp. And he's tripping out on the tracks because he never seen tracks grow, as they're tracking along. And then he gets up in the morning and they're walking along, and pretty soon, he's tracking the baby, and the baby's getting bigger and bigger, and all of a sudden there's a fourth set of tracks, and it's baby tracks again. So it's like they had another baby. And that same day, towards the evening, he comes to where he comes to a river, and he hears inside this granite mountain, he can hear them having a party. So he goes up, and there's a cave, but only the rock is almost straight up going to this cave entrance. And when he looks inside, all he could see is dark, but he could see his wife, or his sister, and he can see the two children playing, but he can't see anyone else in there, but he can hear them, And he calls for his sister, and she comes out, and somehow she walks right, really, she just walks down this really steep, slippery granite rock right down to him that he couldn't even climb up. And he says, "Hey, I want to meet your husband, And she says, well, doesn't like anyone, and he doesn't like to be seen, and I don't think he's gonna see you. He's like, but you're married to him, and he's my brother-in-law, so I want to meet him. And so she goes inside. Hey, how's everybody? I hope you guys enjoy this. This is just a little off, a little Indian fable. I don't know if it's true or not, but it has some things about Bigfoot in it that it would explain some of the supernatural things about Bigfoot. You know what I mean? Like that, like I was just talking about the little baby growing in one day, and starting out like a little worm, and then growing up, and in 3 days it's like, a pretty good sized child, and then they have in the 3-day walk they have another baby, and it's already running around and a little kid toddler by the time he gets to where they live at. But she goes in and talks to the husband, and the husband, he flat out says no. So, like, if I'm butchering it real bad, I am so sorry, but I'm pretty sure that I'm pretty on. I'm pretty familiar with the story, but I'm probably not going word for word of the story. I'm giving my version. Remember, and he wouldn't meet them. So finally, he begs and he begs and he begs, and the sister says, "Well, come on." He said you could come in and you could come inside, So when he gets in there, all the hairy men are in the shadows, and they won't show themselves, But even though he could hear him talking and stuff. And then Tsul'Kalu, he tells him, that he'll meet with them only on his terms, not on their terms, right? And he gives him some, they call them dresses, but they're like buckskin, really nice buckskin clothing, and it might be buckskin dresses, I don't know, but they call it dresses in the story. And he tells them to go back to the village, and all the whole village see him, all the men, and he said for them to go into this, the main room. I can't remember what they call it, like their meeting hall. And the Cherokee, they're real civilized, it was like they had meeting halls and courts and all that stuff, for reals. They were pretty civilized. Now, so he tells them, go back in there and fast for 7 days, then put on the clothes, and then I'll show up and we'll meet. So, and he says, but if anyone, as we show up, anyone comes, he goes, I don't want anyone to give a war cry and run away, right? The first time a war cry happens, I'm out of here, and you're not going to see me. So, but long as you do everything I tell you and there's no war cries, then, we'll be fine and I'll meet you. So they all go in there, but there's this one guy that showed up from another village. He's not part of their village. And, he hears when the brother comes back and is telling everybody, the other guy from another village, he's hearing this. He's like, I'm going to get in on this. You know what I mean? I want to get in and see this. So he goes in with them, and I don't even know why they let him in. You know what I mean? He's like a stranger anyways, but they let him in, and he fasts with them, then they all pass out the buckskin dresses, and they get all ready, and they're sitting there, and it's like dark as fell, and it's starting to get dark, and all of a sudden they hear this thunder coming, like giants, like real, boom, 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 and it's getting louder and louder, and a lot of them are terrified because it's like rattling the building, it's shaking the building, and it's getting louder and louder, and the guy from the other village, he can't hang, when it's almost on him, and it's just rattling, shaking everything apart, everything's like rattling bad, and it's loud, real loud. All of a sudden he gives the war cry and he runs out the back door, and then they hear it going boom, boom, and then it goes away, and they hear the loud stomping and going away, and it goes away, and they don't get to meet, But eventually the brother gets invited to the thing. He sneaks, and he's kind of sneaky like the mom, and he snuck and finally did see him, and he also freaked out, and they sent him away and told him, they're separating themselves from all of the family and the tribe, and she went and stayed there and lived with Tsul'Kalu and her children forever after, and pretty much that's the story. There might be a little bit at the end that I'm not recalling right, but pretty much that's the gist of the story. And it kind of rings true with, like my research over the years. Like when you first start off researching Bigfoot, it's you learn little bits and pieces, almost like they're letting you learn. You know what I mean? Like first it's like little glimpses. Well, my first one was a straight on, full on, at him for almost 2 hours. But there's like you get little glimpses of him peeking, or you see like quick movement of shadows running across, the trees and stuff like that. And it always is like nighttime. There's only been one time that I've ever seen anything in the daytime, but usually right around nightfall, things happen, and they start to happen around nightfall. And at first, for the longest time, I think they're a blood, skin and bones, blood, biological entity with really no powers, except for they're faster, stronger, bigger, taller, taller than us. Come on, don't knock me off yet. Gee, I can't wait to get a camera, you guys. Can't wait. I want to get away from this wireless thing so bad. It's close. You guys are so generous. It's really close. Now the Bigfoot, as you go in the woods more and more, and then they start throwing things at you, and then you get glimpses, and then they start doing these things that is unbelievable, like running a half a mile in 5 seconds in the middle of the night in the deep woods, and they do that several times. Pushing trees over, like 60-foot trees. All of a sudden, near crash. First it starts shaking really bad, and then boom, it crashes over. And then they break branches, and usually when I find the evidence of the broken branch, it's like 8 to 10 to 16 feet. As high as 16 feet up, and it just blows your mind, realizing like, wait a minute, this is going beyond the blood, biological thing with them, and then they sometimes they'll roar, and it'll sound like King Kong, and they'll be a mile away, but in that mile away you could feel that roar. It'll do things like infrasound, you know what I mean? Like it'll target you, and you'll start feeling sick to your stomach and stuff like that. And You can't hear anything or see anything, but you know it's them doing it. After maybe the first few times you don't know, but after a little while you start realizing it's them, you know. And you find evidence of them, the big X's and the teepees, like, and they're made from trees, you know, like telephone pole sized trees, like the strength is unreal, you know what I mean? If I was sure if I was getting it right, but you know, you hear people talk about how that, you know, they don't eat meat and stuff like that, but they're great hunters. That, you know, from what I've seen things that make me believe they're great hunters. Like we found deer. We found deer where, and this is before Paranormal Central, you know, because I've been doing this for a long time. And this is a whole different, another area of the mountains than what me and uh, and I found deer with. I actually didn't find the deer. I found the leg, a leg, like from the not the whole leg, but like from the knee down. I would find these legs, and not all the time, but there would be some places like. Around Jackass Meadow, where I found like 3 or 4 deer leg, and it was all right front leg. You know what I mean? So you know that it was more than one deer because they were all the same leg. You know what I mean? Like I didn't find 4 legs, 2 back ones, 2 front ones, and a right and a left. You know, I would find 4 or 5 or 6 legs. And it would be from the knee joint, and all I could do was guess, you know. All I could do was guess, and after finding these around, like at first I didn't know what I was getting. After a little while, you know, you find that over the years, I would say over a 6-year period or so, you start finding these things and you start thinking like, you know, like they don't have refrigerators and they probably like fresh meat just as much as we do, you know. So you know, you start thinking about these things. It's like if they pull the leg off, the deer can't run away, but it won't die. So, and they probably pulled the leg off, and actually if I would have got there, I might have found, you know, a couple of deer laying there where the legs were. So they pull the leg off and throw the deer down there, and the deer isn't going anywhere. And they could catch 3 or 4 more and pull the legs off. And then when they have enough for a meal for everybody, then they pick the deer up and go wherever it is they eat them, and then they leave the legs there. And I mean, that made sense to me because now they're taking fresh meat straight to where, you know, back to their family and stuff. And that's just something I found a long time ago, like, you know, I don't know, 20 years ago. And I'm not saying I know everything about them either. This is just some things that I've come across. I also found that they like to go uphill. Like it seemed like where they were hunting, when they go to eat, they went way up into the wilderness, you know, where they went where men don't go, like where there's no trails. A long ways. Sometimes, like, you know, I would follow them and they would cross the river and they would go like way far, but they would be heading for these high rocks. Like where I was at, it was called Madeira Peaks or Squaw Dome, something like that. Jackass Rock, and they tended to go up to those really high places, and that's where, I don't know if they live there but only that seemed to be where they were taking the game to. And they would like in the evening when if you were gonna see them, and say you're like, I like up here where I'm at, where I live at, there's a deer migration that's kind of weird. It's unique. It's unique in that in the wintertime, the deer would be way up, way up in the high country, 8,000 feet, 7,000 feet, at where all the meadows are and everything. And then in the winter, at a certain time, they would come down, and they would migrate down, and then they would swim across. I guess at one time, before they put a dam, they would be crossing a river. And it would be in the fall, so the river wouldn't be like huge or nothing. But they would swim across this lake or reservoir that a man made, reservoir. And they actually would close, still to this day, they closed the reservoir during this time when the deer migrate. It's about a 2-week time, so the deer could cross it. And then in the spring, the deer, when they're going back to the summer area, they went to the wintering area when they were crossing it in the fall, going down towards the foothills, lower where there's no snow, like below the snow line. Then after the storms are over and it started getting spring and warming up, before the rivers are really raging or anything, they already start migrating up. There's still like snow on the ground and stuff, you know what I mean? And they cross, and then they go back up to the summer range. So they have the winter range and the summer range. And most of my sightings and evidence collecting tracks, I never casted tracks. I really never thought of it, but then by the time that I heard about casting tracks, I seen so many tracks and different sizes and all that, and different stride lengths and stuff, that I didn't think about casting tracks all that much. I wasn't really out to prove anything to anybody. Mostly everybody laughed at me anyways. But I found a lot of evidence in this migration. Okay? And it got to where I started realizing that the evidence that I was finding, it was like this, at the same time as the deer were moving down, the Bigfoot were moving down, and they were moving in the same migration route. And then in the spring, I would find, as all the fresh deer sign going back up, I would find fresh Bigfoot sign going back up. Broken trees and footprints and stuff like that. And then there was one day that, and what something else I noticed was, when there was little tracks, you couldn't find the little tracks, the baby ones or young ones, as good as the big ones. But sometimes I would find the little tracks, and I would only find one or two outside of, like all by not by themselves, but where it's just a little track. The rest of the time I found them, it looked like either the baby was stepping in the bigger track, or the mother or dad or the bigger ones were stepping in on the little ones' tracks, like trying to cover their tracks, trying to cover up that there's little ones. And when you follow it enough, you would find it, but it wasn't obvious right at first that there was any little ones with them. It took a little while of following these tracks around before I started noticing, like, I think it was a sun angle was the first time I noticed it. It just happened to be the right angle, and I saw the shadow of the little track, and I was like, whoa, check that out. That's interesting, I thought that was so cool. The first time I found little bitty, like little ones, like toddlers, little. And I found tracks that are huge, real huge, all the way down to little ones, like babies. Um, and it's not it might sound like that I find them all the time. No, that's not the case. It was like you come across them every so often. The bigger ones a little more often than the little ones, but it's it's not like you run out there and find them. Then there was the other ones where I'm tracking them, and actually, like, some of my friends that are First Nation people, they told me don't track them. They know what you're doing. Even though I meant no harm, I just was trying to figure out what they're doing, where they're going, what they're eating, stuff like that. They told me don't track them. They take that as you're hunting them. And I never thought about that before. I never thought like that. It was like, oh, I guess if somebody was tracking me and I saw them tracking me and following my tracks, I would think the same thing. So then I didn't follow them as much. I tried to figure out a different way to, see which way they're going. Like, if I could get it, once I realized the migration thing, it was a lot easier. Like, I would find some tracks going the migration route, and then I could get in my car and I could drive like 20 miles more up, and I would know I know the migration area, and where the summer and wintering areas were. So then I could bypass a lot of tracking part and go right to the area, and then I would look for their tracks and then see how fresh they were and how long ago they were, laid the tracks down. But there was some times where I would be actually tracking them, because the tracks are really, really, like, I would say a few minutes ahead of me. And if I followed them, I thought, sometimes rocks would get thrown at me, pine cones. I'd start hearing tree snaps. If I got too close, then whole trees would fall down. I mean, like, does a tree, what's that saying, does a tree make noise whenever it falls in the woods? Well, yes. Trees make noise when they fall in the woods. They make a lot of noise, man. It's a little bit scary, a little bit. Because at first, you think, oh, wow, a tree fell. Like, man, that is so cool. Whoever heard a tree, who gets to hear that every so often? But then after a little while, it's like, you know what? Trees don't just fall down. It, like, say you 3 times in 1 year you're witness to a tree falling. That's a little much. Coincidence that you were there when 3 trees fell? Yeah. Those guys were pushing them over. And later I would find that was the truth, because I would find these massive, big, size 30 shoes prints, or footprints, proving that they pushed over a big old giant big tree. And sometimes they carry them. They push them over and they carry them, and they build these blockade like corral things, and they'll make it like a half circle, and then they'll put one really big log right in front of the corral, and there's like a really worn trail that goes in to this, and I think they ambush deer and game right there. Like, one will lay behind the log, and then the other ones will chase the game in, and then the one behind the log will jump out, and there's nowhere for him to go. They either run right back into the Bigfoot that's chasing them, or they they get killed by the one that just jumped over the log. But they're actually cornered or surrounded. They're trapped. And I found several of these areas. In fact, me and Jeffrey found one up by Dinky Creek, and that became one of our camera traps. And one day we went up there, and it was destroyed. They took all the food. they took all the cameras are gone, and the whole thing was totally destroyed. And we're talking about huge, massive logs that, I don't even think like 10 people could pick it up, you know? But yeah, so when you start going back in the native lore, and then you think about, you add that to the what you find, and then you add that to the stories. You add that to the stories that you read of other people's encounters or research that they found, and it starts painting a picture of the exactly. I don't think ever a place where I think they actually live. You know what I mean? Like where they actually go in the daytime and go to sleep and stuff. I don't think if I did run across it, I didn't know. And I've only found evidence of them where, like, in the things in the night when they're running around, knocking trees down, breaking branches. I do know that, like, they mark trails by snapping the trees like a certain way. Like I didn't hear being snapped, but only they'll break branches in a certain way. They actually do a twist. They do a twist to it and then bend it over, and it snaps, and they leave it on the tree, and it's like pointing the way, you know what I mean? And usually for me, they're high up. They're like 10 feet, 11 feet up. So it's real interesting, to do that stuff. So I thought I got back in a look here. Oh, she's doing some. My wife is sitting in the bedroom. She does. What do you call it? Crocheting. And her and my mom, that she wants to watch a movie. I had to start at 8:00, because she wants to watch Hallmark movies. She likes Hallmark movies, and that's what they were doing last night and causing my internet to go bad. Why it's going bad, and I have no idea what's going on. But they crochet and they make baby hats and blankets, and they do it like all summer long, and then towards Christmas time and getting the time when it gets really cold, they donate it to the homeless and to places that take care of kids, foster kids and stuff like that. And they'll have big bags of hats and blankets and stuff like that, shade, and they give them to these places, and sometimes we'll get bags of knit caps, and we'll go out where the homeless are, where they're camping at in the daytime, and we'll go out and ask, does anybody want any knit caps or anything like that, and so we donate these caps to those people. We were giving them to churches and stuff like that, but now they're a little more selective on how they do it. They want to make sure that they're going to who they intend it to go to. So that's what they're doing, and then I don't know if you guys see them. They have those looms. They figured out they can like, hey Barry, what's up? Cool, man. That have you seen those looms? And they can do the loom like, spin it around, and it like spins a hat, and it has different size looms for different size. And then they also take requests. Like some people want black cats, and some people want orange and white, like 50-50 bar colors, stuff like that. Some and green ones, so they also do that too. Like somebody, oh, I love those hats, because they'll be showing them. They'll say, what are you doing? And they'll show somebody, and then they'll say, oh, I want a hat like that, Can you make me a hat? And they're like, sure, and they make them a hat. And I think it's really cool too. It gives them something to do. It makes them feel good and stuff. And I'll never say they can't do that. You know, I think it's a really wonderful thing. So, all the people, I'm not sure, like, I don't want to say everybody's name that donated, but the donations are coming in. You guys are blowing me away, okay? I'm there's enough donations now where I'm starting to look for stuff. It's not quite enough to get everything, phone calls and a dedicated camera, and then there's qualities too, like oh man, I mean it's endless. I didn't realize it was so big of a selection, you know, like how to do it. Like there's okay, how to donate. Somebody's asking how. You can click on my YouTube channel in the cover picture across the top, down on the bottom right side. There's my Google Plus link, and then there's this thing that says donate. It goes to my PayPal link. If you can't find that, you can just click about on on my channel. Just click about, and you'll see the two links towards the middle of that page when you click it, and that's how you do it. And the super chat thing, there is a way to do it like that, but I figured out how that works. And what the deal is with the super chat is, I guess you pay to put a comment in the chat, and it makes a color, and it gives you an option of how much and stuff like that. And YouTube takes a little percentage of that, or a percentage of the PayPal, the super chat, and it adds into any revenue that you're making from views or anything like that. Now, right now, I don't like have a lot of views like I was getting with Jeffrey. I mean, it's starting to get up there. Only even when me and Jeff are doing it, YouTube changed their revenue way, and that's actually how I wanted to do it. I didn't really want to ask for donations or anything. But YouTube changed how they do the revenue, and you only get paid once a month, and around the 20th. But on the first of the month, whatever you have accrued in the YouTube, you get paid on the 21st of that month, and you can't get paid unless you meet the $100 threshold. Okay. And in revenue, I got paid last month. I made a little over 100, but that was from me and Jeffrey's videos, and it took 2 months to reach that $107 or whatever it was. I mean, the views were starting to fall off of the for a little while now, and I don't think it was the views so much as it was the way that a few months ago YouTube changed their thing. Like if I say a bad word, one bad word, they flag my video and say that it's not appropriate for advertisers. Like I already did one on here of the late night one. I can't remember which one it was. And they flagged it saying it wasn't appropriate for advertisers, but they still have the ads running, right? It isn't like they took the ads off. They're just taking the revenue away from you. Like, bad boy, you said a bad word, And I can't recall saying very many bad words. You guys, maybe one out of 4 times on, So it's their. Yeah, everything's about ads, and then they cut how much they pay in viewer time and all this stuff. So it was almost 2/3. Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that. I said his name a few times. Maybe that's what it is. But it says that I could have a human review it, because I guess it's the algorithm that does it. So I could have a human review it, and then when I said, yeah, there's nothing wrong with my video, have a human review it, and then a little, well, there's 1,000 views on it. I looked at it, 200 and something views. Like, oh, well, it's gonna be a while before they view it, I guess. Until we build up the subscribership again. But yeah, that's how it goes. Yeah, I said that too. I did say I had my poop kickers. I wonder if they get you for poop. Think? Man, what is this world coming to? Geez, there's fires all over the place. There's shootings. There's earthquakes. There's hurricanes. I mean, man, have you ever seen anything happening so much? And these fire things, there's something about that, man. Like, it looks like the Ring of Fire in Northern California. Have you looked at the map? It's like the Ring of Fire going around this, like somebody drove down highways and just was throwing things out the window, I mean, it is. The world's crazy. I have no idea, like, where we're headed now, man. It's getting bonkers. I know back in the day when I was a little kid, riding my banana seat, Huffy, or what do they call them? Swin, bar, and the ape hanger handlebars, one time I put a flag, American flag, on the back of my tall sissy bar, and I was riding around the neighborhood, but when I saw it, man, the neighbors ran out. You're desecrating the flag, you don't let the flag touch the ground, and man, they were gonna kick my butt for letting the flag touch the ground. As a little kid, I didn't know, I had no idea, but I learned that I was desecrating the flag, and I took it off too. So then I just replaced it with 2 clothespins with some cards, and so they would go when I was riding my bike. I don't know how many people remember that either, but yeah, so I have an update. This is something that me and Jeffrey went out and Stingrays. There you go, Stingray bicycles. I have an update. Me and Jeffrey went out to the lake, and my nephew told us this guy was up there, and he seen a big old huge Bigfoot carrying a cow, and it looked like he took his front leg and his back leg and twisted them like a bread tie and was dragging it up a hill. Okay, a Bigfoot was dragging a cow up a hill, and he said the Bigfoot was big. Now, it had to be big because he said it was like a full-grown cow that he was dragging up the hill. And we went over there and looked in the area, and there was cows around there, and they had like a bridge under the road. It wasn't for water, it was for animals to go under the road, cows to go under the road. So that the cows couldn't cross the road, so it was a way for the cows to go under the road and go on the other side. And I'm sure deer and everything else used that little tube or tunnel to go under the road. But it was above that tube, and we didn't even know it was there until we went over there and we were looking around. And I'm sure the Bigfoot got that cow and was dragging it up the hill. And we went over there and we took the guy's story and everything, and checked everything out. And he said that something was knocking on the back of his house. And him and they have it's a really nice place. Remember the guy? Remember the commercial? Mikey Likes It. Give it to Mikey. Mikey likes it, right? Well, his parents own this house, and it's beautiful. It's like all glass. The top floor is nothing but a kitchen. All the way around it's glass, and it's sitting right on a lake, like a piece of land goes out and it's sitting right on the edge of this lake. It's beautiful, it has two, like a hot tub, and then that dumps into an infinity pool, which dumps into another infinity pool that overlooks the lake. And oh man, I mean, it's a real beautiful place. Tennis courts, and the guy was saying that there's some oleander bushes around the tennis courts giving it privacy. And he said that there was something watching him one day, and it was pulling the oleander bushes apart, and it was standing there, and it was looking at him through the oleander bushes. And so Jeffrey's like, "Oh, that's neat. Maybe they might find something down there." So him and Jeffrey went down there, and then just beyond the tennis court, a little ways down, there's a beach, a nice little beach. When the water is high as it is right now, it's a nice little beach. And they got over there and they found tracks, and I'm pretty sure Jeffrey shared it on the show, where as the water went down, it made like steps on the beach, and they were about 4 feet apart. And this, whatever it was, had big feet. It had really big feet, and it was stepping to like mess up its track. It was stepping on the step part of the beach, and where the flat part was, like the step, like if you're going down steps, okay, it was stepping on the edge. So it was like stepping on and we're only talking about 3 or 4 inch drop, but it was stepping there so that it would mess up its foot track. But the foot track was huge. It was a good 20-inch track. Well, my nephew, he went back up there. That's his friend that lives there, and he goes up there and visits all the time, and it's right near. And he went up and visited him, and there in the eagle's nest there was some eagles. So he was taking pictures. He took pictures of the female eagle, and he took pictures of the male eagle, and then there was 3 chicks in the nest, and he took pictures of that, and then his battery died, right? And they were sitting there, and then his friend tells him, "Hey, I want you to tell your uncle, something was out knocking on the wall of my house again, on the outside wall." Now this guy's the caretaker of the property, and they have like a 6-car garage, and the garages they turned into like an apartment, and this guy lives in the garage, I guess you would say, or the apartment that was I guess it would be like a 4-car. It's 2-car garage segments, and there's 6 of them, and then they turned 2 of the 2-car garage size things into an apartment, and that's what he lives in. And so then my nephew, they're like, "Wow, let's go out and see if there's any tracks out there like there was at the beach." So they went back there, and sure enough, there was some tracks. He said they were size 30 shoe size, but they were barefoot tracks, and it had ran from the back of his house away from his house. And he said the guy took a measuring tape. Okay, size 30-inch track. 30-inch. That sounds like big enough to drag a cow, right? Big enough to drag a cow. 30 inches. And the tracks were, like 12.5 feet to 15 feet. Some of them were 12.5 feet, and then a few of them were 15 feet apart. The tracks. And they had one friend there that didn't believe in Bigfoot, and he was trying to argue with them, and they're like, "Look at the track. I mean, there's the toes, there's," And then when it's hard, it hasn't rained here in a long time, so the dirt is really hard. and it was actually sinking as it was running. Its heel and footprint, it was mostly the heel, was, it was denting the ground. And we can't run, hopping, you can't dent the ground right now. It's hard as a rock. Only it was denting the ground as it ran. And it ran, they said, maybe 100 yards away from the house into like a brush area. And when it got in there, then it started walking. And the walking stride, oh, come on. The walking stride was from 5.5 feet to 6.5 feet, averaging 6 feet, depending on if it was going up a hill or not. If it was a straight flat ground, it was 6 feet, a 6-foot stride walking. And if it was like going up a hill, it was like 5.5 feet stride going up the hill. And then they lost it. It went to some other people's property that they really didn't want to go over there, and that right there is where they stopped. So they didn't track it any further than that. It was probably 500 yards. They tracked it, and I can't wait to go over there again, and see this. And he spent his batteries taking pictures of eagles, and he didn't. So we didn't get to take any pictures of the footprints. And I was like, man, dude, wow. I would have loved to seen the tape measure, from track to track, and have them, have somebody stand back and show the stride, and then go and show, 15 feet on the measuring tape on that. But yeah, that's the update, and I'll keep you updated on that, because we're not done with this one by a long shot, And then they introduced me to somebody, or they told somebody else, those guys, and there's another person, he's a native around here. He got permission to bring me to have a meeting with the Bigfoot, and he said that we could get within 20 feet. That's the closest they'll let us get, and that they'll talk to us. But he warned us. He said there's hundreds of them in there. Don't think, if you see one or two, he said there's hundreds of them in this area, and they're all different shapes and sizes and colors. He said fat ones, skinny ones, big ones, tall ones, small ones, white ones, multicolored ones, gray ones, black ones, red ones, like all the different kinds. But he's been talking to him for a long time, and it reminded me, of my wife's grandfather. He always would say, like, he was painting like that behind me. He has one. I'll share it one day. Maybe I can hang it up there. It's of the little people. It shows regular tribal member size, and then it shows the little people. And he was always talking to the little people, and they wouldn't give him permission to finish the painting. Like, he painted everything on it but the little people, and he told them that he was painting the little people, and they wouldn't give him permission. And then a little while before he passed away, they gave him permission to finish the painting, and he finished it. And we have a laser, print of the painting. The painting's hanging somewhere in Oklahoma, and I think it's in a museum or something like that over there. But this reminded me of that this guy goes out and he talks to the big people. That's what he was calling them. And somebody told him about me, and they said, hey, he was talking to him and saying, let's invite them over to talk to them. And they agreed we can't get any closer than 20 feet. So it's in the works, and I will definitely keep you up on that one, on what's going on. Oh yeah, it's scary. It is. You know, it's scary. And when you're talking about something that, like, if you're sitting in a house and the ceiling's 8 feet tall, okay, so they're like 12 feet tall. Like, think of that. That's 4 feet taller than your ceiling where you're sitting right now. If your ceiling's 8 feet, that's 4 feet taller than that. Could you imagine that? Like they're almost to the ceiling height. I mean, that's crazy, huh? And then you start thinking about like the ones that we're tracking right now, 30-inch track, 30 inches, 30 inches. That's like the biggest one I ever heard of. And this one's like grabbing a cow by the front leg and the back leg and twisting it like a bread tie and then dragging it up the hill. Like, how much does a cow weigh? A full-grown cow? What, 1,000 pounds? Is it something like that? 900, 1,000, 1,200 pounds, something like that. I mean, it takes something. It would have to be something with 30-inch size tracks to drag a cow up the hill. You know what I mean? Man. Yeah, well, that's my bedtime story for tonight. I didn't have much. I wanted to talk Bigfoot, though, and I wanted to touch on the Native American lore on them for my tribe. I have some more, like I know some for the Thule tribe, but and for the Mono tribe, but they're more like not want me to share, Like there is one I can share. It's called the Bigfoot War. I was going to talk about it on Destination America. In fact, they videotaped me talking about it on Destination America for Monsters and Mysteries. But then they also videotaped Kathy Strain telling the same story. That's what blew me away. Like when I was watching the show for the first time, like 9 months after we shot it, and I was waiting to hear, the title said Bigfoot Wars. And I was like, oh man, I can't wait to hear me talking about the Bigfoot Wars. And then I didn't talk about it. Kathy Strain did, but she had it totally 100%. And I didn't know. I didn't know there was that many people that knew about that story, because it took me 3 years of asking and almost being a bug to the elders to get that. And how long it took Kathy Strain. And I know she's friends with and stuff, and she does archaeology, and she's really a nice lady, and she's had a lot of encounters herself, her and her husband. And I mean, the Strains are great people. I love them, and I love you guys. I love everybody. Hey, that's not unknown. Like everybody, I really do. I don't mean a stranger, and then you guys are like my kind of people, you know what I mean? You like the UFOs. Like, I haven't even hardly touched on UFOs yet, and abductions and things like that of the people that I've talked to over the years. That'll come. Right now I'm kind of like doing the Bigfoot track thing, But I'm pretty much done. My wife wants to do her Hallmark movie, and I told her I would get out of here quick so that she could sit there and, make her little hats and stuff like that for the homeless people and the little babies that don't have mommies and daddies and stuff like that. So, you guys, and then it was really fun last night. I want to tell John Roslin. He said I could say his name, and I could say what happened, okay? John Roslin's fighting cancer, you guys. And he's in and out of the hospital. I've been praying for him for a while. He lives on the East Coast, or the right coast, he calls it. And we live on the left coast, but I've been praying for him for healing of the cancer. And I'm believing for a healing for the cancer of John. And last night, he was like, man, I can't go to sleep. Can there be a bedtime story tonight? And I'm like, it, John. For John, last night's bedtime story. And then I was having all kinds of internet connections like tonight. I don't know what's going on with that. It's like somebody's trying to stop me from doing this, huh? But everybody that prays, pray for John Roslin. Pray that God heal him for the glory of God. That the glory of the healing will let everybody know that God is real because it healed him from cancer. And I'm actually how I'm praying. Everybody can agree with my prayer. Here we go. I'm gonna get, what do you call it? Censored. Yeah, I'm gonna get censored for this. Oh well. I'm praying that the cancer die at the roots. At the roots, from the roots. It has to die. The cancer inside John Roslin, die at the roots. In the name of you know who. And I'm going to say, in the name of Jesus, I command it to die at the roots. And John be healed to the glory of God. Amen. So everybody agree with me on that prayer, and we're going to beat John's cancer to death. And I love it. All right, you guys. You have a really, really good evening. I'm going to let my wife go back to her Hallmark movie and her, her knitting or whatever it is, crochet. She's checking on me. Ha, yeah, it's time. All right. Good night, everybody.